The midday sky peeked through the large glass windows of the company cafeteria. The atmosphere was quite lively but not noisy. A few employees sat chatting while enjoying their lunch. In one of the corner tables, Yin and her best friend, Mina, sat facing each other. With her hair neatly tied and a crisp white blouse tucked into her pencil skirt, Yin looked like any other successful career woman. At 29 years old, she now worked as the assistant to the CEO, her own father, in preparation to eventually take over the fast-growing family company. But that afternoon, her face looked noticeably pale. Yin, are you sure you're okay? Mina put down her spoon and looked at her friend worriedly. Mina was Yin's college friend and now worked at the same company. Yin nodded slowly, trying to smile. It's just, my stomach hurts again, like it's being stabbed. You've complained about this more than once. It's been 3 months now, hasn't it? Mina asked with a furrowed brow. She leaned in, studying Yin's increasingly weary face. Haven't you gone back to the doctor? I went to a general practitioner last month, but they only gave me some painkillers. Yin let out a deep breath and stared blankly at the leftover chicken soup in front of her. At first, I thought it was just gastritis because I often skip meals. But lately it's gotten worse. Especially this past week, every night it feels like a sharp pain. Mina's concern deepened. Yin, you need to see a specialist. You can't keep going on like this. What if it's something serious? Yin didn't respond, about to open her mouth when suddenly her hand instinctively moved to clutch her lower abdomen. The pain was back, stronger this time. Her breathing became labored, and she closed her eyes, trying to endure it. Mina stood up in panic and bent toward her friend. Yin, hey, what's happening? It hurts more now, Yin whispered, her face deathly pale and lips starting to lose color. Without hesitation, Mina grabbed her phone. We're going to the hospital, now. I can't just sit here and watch you in pain. Yin tried to protest, but I need to tell my dad first. Mina nodded quickly. All right, call him. But right after that, we're going. With trembling hands, Yin called her father. Her voice was weak over the phone, but she tried to sound composed. Dad, my stomach is hurting again. Mina wants to take me to the hospital now. Is that okay? Again? How long has this been going on, Yin? A few months, Dad, but it's gotten worse this week. Right now, it's pretty bad. He sighed deeply before responding with firm concern. All right, I'll allow it. I'll have the driver get ready right away. Wait downstairs at the lobby. Don't drive yourself. After hanging up, Yin looked at Mina, who was already standing, grabbing her water bottle and packing up the remaining food. I'll get your bag from your office, okay? Just make your way to the lobby slowly, and we'll head to the hospital right after. Thanks, Mina, Yin said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the quiet hum of the cafeteria. Mina simply nodded and rushed toward Yin's office on the upper floor. Meanwhile, Yin steadied her breath, trying to stay upright even though her abdomen felt like it was being twisted from the inside. A few coworkers greeted her along the way, and she responded with a faint smile. A few minutes later, the company's driver was already waiting in front of the office building's lobby. Mina arrived with Yin's bag in hand and immediately helped her into the car. Come on, let's find out what's really going on, and with that, they set off toward the hospital. The car finally stopped in front of a prestigious private hospital located in one of Seoul's elite districts. The building was tall and modern, with large glass panels reflecting the midday sky. Mina got out first and immediately opened the door for Yin. Come on, let's get you registered right away so you can be treated soon, Mina said, gently helping her friend, who was still clutching her abdomen in pain. Thanks to the efficient digital system, the registration process went smoothly. They were directed to the 3rd floor, the internal medicine clinic. The corridor was quiet and orderly. The strong scent of antiseptic filled the air, and the sound of nurses' shoes clicking against the marble floor added to the cold, clinical feel of the hospital. Yin and Mina sat side by side on the waiting room chairs. They were surrounded by several other patients, most of whom were elderly. Yin seemed to be the youngest patient there. Across from them, a door displayed a nameplate that read, Dr. Jungkook, MD, Internal Medicine Specialist. Yin's gaze froze. Her heartbeat went out of rhythm. That name, Jungkook. She couldn't take her eyes off the nameplate. Her throat went dry, and for a few seconds, the world seemed to blur into silence. She turned slightly toward Mina, who was busy checking her phone. No, it couldn't be. Yin, what's wrong? Mina asked, noticing that her friend's face had turned even paler, but this time, not from stomach pain. Yin shook her head slowly and tried to offer a faint smile. It's nothing, just, the name looks familiar. Suddenly, memories came flooding in. Senior year of high school, the library, and a handsome, brilliant boy with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Yin still remembered how she had written her first handwritten love letter, and how it had been returned unopened. Jungkook had rejected her feelings, calmly but coldly. Since that day, she had never tried to find out anything about him again. It can't be him. There must be a lot of people named Jeon Jungkook, Yin murmured inwardly, trying to reassure herself. But still, her heart continued to race uneasily. Several quiet minutes passed before a nurse called out from the doorway, sending a jolt through Yin's entire body. "Patient Park Yin, please come in." Mina immediately stood up and reached for Yin's hand, who was still frozen in place. "Come on, I'll go in with you." With slow steps and a pounding heart, Yin followed Mina into the room. The door creaked open, and the familiar smell of a doctor's office greeted them. The room was spacious, neatly arranged, and modern. Behind a large desk with an open laptop and several medical documents sat a man in a white coat, a stethoscope draped around his neck. His head was slightly lowered as he wrote something, but when he finally looked up to greet his patient, their eyes met, and time seemed to stop. Jungkook, those sharp eyes, still the same. His face looked more mature now, his jawline more defined, his skin flawless, and his gaze still piercing, though there was a flicker of surprise when he saw Yin. Yin froze on the spot. Her heart felt like it had jumped out of her chest. Her breath caught in her throat. Meanwhile, Jungkook remained silent for a second, then quickly masked his surprise with a faint, professional smile. "Please, have a seat," he said softly, his voice deep and composed. Mina helped Yin into the patient chair and sat beside her, unaware of the thick tension that had suddenly filled the room. "Full name?" Jungkook asked, his eyes now focused on the laptop screen. "Park Yin," Yin answered quietly. "Date of birth?" After a few administrative questions, Jungkook looked at Yin more attentively. "All right, Miss Park Yin, what symptoms are you experiencing?" For a moment, Yin didn't respond. Then, in a weak voice, she answered, "I've been having stomach pain, doctor, for about 3 months, but it's gotten worse over the past week. I saw a general doctor about a month ago, but there's been no improvement. And this past week, the pain has become really severe." Jungkook listened carefully as Yin explained her complaints. He nodded slowly, then said in a calm and polite voice, "All right, please lie down on the examination bed now. The nurse will assist you." One of the nurses immediately approached and helped Yin to the bed. Yin hesitated slightly, but obeyed. After lying down, Jungkook came closer and began examining her body, gently pressing a few points around her abdomen. "Does it hurt here?" he asked gently, pressing the upper right side. Yin shook her head. "What about here?" Jungkook asked again, pressing another spot. Yin still shook her head. When Jungkook's fingers pressed a specific point in the lower abdomen, Yin unconsciously winced and nodded slightly. "Yes, there, it hurts a lot." Jungkook nodded in understanding. "All right, I'll perform an ultrasound for a more detailed check." He gestured to the nurse. The nurse helped Yin lift her shirt to expose her abdomen, then applied cold gel. Yin bit her lip, not because of the cold, but out of nervousness. In front of her was the man who once held a place in her heart, and honestly, maybe still hadn't completely left. All this time, Yin hadn't opened her heart to anyone else. Jungkook prepared the ultrasound device, then slowly began moving the probe over her abdomen. The monitor displayed images of her internal organs. In a calm and professional tone, Jungkook explained one by one. "Stomach looks good, pancreas is fine, gallbladder is normal, uterus." But as he moved the probe lower, directly over the uterus area, his hand suddenly stopped. His eyes stared at the monitor more intently. Yin could feel it, the sudden tension in the air. Jungkook took a few deep breaths, trying to stay calm. "What is it, doctor? Is there something wrong with my uterus?" Yin asked in a soft, almost trembling voice. But Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He kept staring at the screen, double-checking, trying to be certain of something. Yin grew increasingly anxious but chose to stay silent and let Jungkook finish the examination. A few minutes later, the scan ended. Jungkook nodded to the nurse and stepped back. The nurse helped Yin wipe off the gel from her stomach, and she returned to sit in front of Jungkook's desk with Mina. Yin's face showed even more worry. "What is it, doctor, really?" Jungkook looked at her deeply, then carefully replied, "I recommend you undergo a follow-up examination with an OB-GYN, just to be sure." "Follow-up?" Yin asked, increasingly panicked. "You can just tell me now, Jungkook. Please, be honest." She was now too anxious to care about formalities or titles. Jungkook was silent for a moment, then let out a sigh before speaking in a low but clear voice. "It's most likely a fibroid in your uterus. It's a benign tumor, but because it's in the uterus, it should be examined further by a specialist. An OB-GYN would be the right one to handle it. The room fell silent. Mina immediately grabbed Yin's hand, her own eyes glistening. Fibroid. Yin's voice was faint, barely audible. Her face was pale, and she looked utterly shocked. It's okay, Yin. It's treatable. Mina tried to comfort her, though her voice trembled. Jungkook also tried to reassure her. Fibroids are quite common, and many women live healthy lives after proper treatment. Don't be afraid, okay? But something else was now bothering Yin. Jungkook, please tell me, does this mean I need surgery? Will it affect my fertility? Will I still be able to have children? She asked urgently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jungkook stared at her. To him, the woman sitting across from him wasn't just another patient. She was someone special, and for some reason, it was hard to say what he knew, not because he didn't know how, but because he didn't want to hurt her. Finally, he sighed. In mild cases, after treatment, most women can still get pregnant. Yin grew even more anxious. So, in my case, Jungkook, is it mild or severe? For some reason, her gut feeling was only growing worse. Jungkook let out a sigh, unconsciously biting his lower lip. He truly couldn't bring himself to tell Yin the full truth. Of course, he had at least some idea of what Yin might face in the future. You should do a follow-up examination with an OB-GYN, Yin. That way, you can get the right treatment, was all Jungkook finally said. Yin only nodded now. She knew Jungkook was aware of something, but chose to remain silent. Coincidentally, the OB-GYN on duty today is my cousin, Dr. Jisoo. She's very experienced. You should go see her right away. Don't delay. Yin nodded quietly. Jungkook gave instructions to a nurse to escort Yin directly to Dr. Jisoo's room, so she wouldn't have to wait in line. As Yin stood up, she looked at Jungkook and said softly, "Thank you, Jungkook." Jungkook nodded and looked at her. "I'm glad to see you again, Yin, even if it's like this." That did it. Hearing Jungkook's words made Yin want to cry all over again. But before she could, the nurse returned and gently guided Yin toward the OB-GYN room. After Yin left, Jungkook sat still, leaning back and rubbing his forehead. The three nurses in the room exchanged glances. They could tell something was wrong with him. Finally, one of them dared to approach. "Dr. Jeon, are you alright?" Jungkook simply nodded without answering. "Shall I call in the next patient?" she asked again politely. Jungkook raised his hand slowly, as if signaling, "Wait, not yet. Give me 5 minutes. I need to calm down." He spoke without opening his eyes. The nurse nodded and returned to her colleagues. They exchanged looks, fully aware that Jungkook was not okay. Then they began whispering to each other quietly. "Who was that woman earlier? I think that's why Dr. Jeon looks like this. Whoever she is, she's definitely not just another patient in his heart." That night, the air felt colder than usual, not because of the weather, but because of the heavy atmosphere in Yin's room. The girl kept sobbing under her blanket, her body trembling not from the temperature, but from fear, anxiety, and heartbreak all mixed together. Since returning from the hospital that afternoon, Yin hadn't stepped out of her room even once. Her tears hadn't stopped, and her eyes were now swollen. Before long, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, followed by the soft creak of her door opening. It was her father, just home from work, his face tired but still warm with concern. Without saying much, he sat at the edge of her bed and gently rubbed her back. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Talk to me. What did the doctor say?" he asked softly. Hearing her father's voice, Yin could no longer hold back her emotions. She immediately turned around and hugged him tightly, breaking down into sobs. "Dad, I won't be able to give you grandchildren," she choked out between tears. Her father froze, stunned. He was silent for a moment, trying to understand the meaning behind his only daughter's words. Then, with all the patience in the world, he gently asked again, "What do you mean, sweetie? Why would you say that?" Yin slowly pulled away from the hug, tears streaming down her face as she tried to explain between shaky breaths. "Earlier, at the hospital, I saw an OB-GYN. I have a myoma, Dad, and the doctor said, I need surgery as soon as possible. But if I go through with it, there's a chance I won't be able to get pregnant again." Her father was taken aback, but without saying a word, he pulled Yin back into his arms, this time even tighter. His own tears threatened to fall, but he held them back. He had to be strong for his daughter. In that embrace, Yin continued in a softer voice, "The myoma is already big and pressing on my uterus. The doctor said if they remove it now, there's still a chance my uterus can be saved, but the risk is high, because it's deeply attached to the uterine wall, and it might damage it when removed. If I don't have surgery, it could cause bleeding or they might have to remove my uterus completely. Her father gently stroked her back. He took a deep breath, trying to hold back the pain weighing down his chest. He knew how much Yin loved children, how she dreamed of becoming a mother one day. But with a calm and soothing voice, he said, "Sweetheart, I don't care if you can have children or not. All I want is for you to be healthy. That's all." Yin fell silent, tears falling again. "If I had to choose, I'd rather not have any grandchildren than lose you. You're all I have now. After your mom passed, it's just been you and me. So please, think about your own life first. Don't worry about anything else." Those words felt like a second embrace to Yin, warming her heart that had nearly frozen from fear. Her father kissed her forehead gently, continuing to stroke her shoulder. "Now, get some rest and prepare yourself mentally. The surgery is important. I'll always be here for you. When is the operation scheduled?" Through her slowly calming sobs, Yin finally answered. The doctor said, "It needs to be done soon, no later than 7 days from now." Her father nodded firmly. "All right, I'll take care of everything. You just focus on preparing yourself. Don't be afraid, okay? We'll face this together." That night, for the first time since coming home from the hospital, Yin felt a little more at peace. There was still fear in her heart, but her father's embrace and warm words were the strongest support she had right now. A few days later, the myoma removal surgery in Yin's uterus, led by Dr. Jisoo, an OB-GYN specialist, was finally completed with a fairly satisfying result from a medical standpoint. However, there was a major consequence that had to be accepted. During the procedure, it was discovered that the myoma had adhered too deeply to the uterine wall, causing severe damage to the surrounding tissue. To save Yin's uterus and her life, the doctors had to remove most of the essential tissues, making the possibility of a natural pregnancy nearly impossible. In other words, although her uterus remained, its reproductive function was severely limited. There is a very high possibility that Yin will not be able to get pregnant due to the damage to her uterine wall. Yin had now been moved to a VIP hospital room. She had just regained consciousness from the anesthesia, her eyelids slowly opening and adjusting to the dim lighting in the room. Beside her, her father sat patiently, gently holding her hand. His face radiated relief, and a soft smile curved on his lips. "Sweetheart, you're finally awake. You've made it through the critical stage. I'm so proud of you," he said while gently stroking her hand. Yin blinked slowly, giving him a faint smile despite her body still feeling weak. Before she could say more, the door creaked open. 2 people in white coats entered, Dr. Jisoo and Dr. Jungkook. Yin's father immediately stood to greet them warmly. Dr. Jisoo smiled gracefully and walked over to Yin. "Hello, Yin. How are you feeling? A bit better?" she asked as she carefully examined Yin's post-operative condition. "A bit sore, doc," Yin replied softly. "That's normal, considering you just had major surgery. But thankfully, there are no signs of infection. Your blood pressure is also stable," Dr. Jisoo said while reviewing the medical notes on her tablet. Jungkook, who had been standing quietly on the other side of the bed, added, "Her hemoglobin levels are also starting to rise. Most likely, she won't need an additional transfusion." Yin's father nodded, trying to grasp the situation. "Her condition after surgery is quite stable, but will still need to keep a close observation for the next 2 or 3 days," said Dr. Jisoo before turning to Jungkook. "Have you reviewed the latest lab results?" "Yes," Jungkook replied, his eyes still gently fixed on Yin. "Leukocyte count is within a safe range, but we still need to monitor her body's response to the antibiotics. I recommend limiting visitors for now." "Agreed," Jisoo nodded. "As for her diet, we'll continue with liquids for now. If her digestion handles it well, we'll gradually upgrade it." Yin listened in silence, though her heart stirred. Seeing the 2 of them discussing her condition so seriously made her feel special somehow, especially when Jungkook occasionally stole glances at her. After a few minutes, Dr. Jisoo said, "I'll head to the nurse's station to give further instructions." Yin's father immediately followed, wanting to learn more about his daughter's recovery in detail. Now, only Yin and Jungkook remained in the room. The atmosphere was slightly awkward yet calm. Jungkook approached the bedside, smiling softly. "Hey," he said quietly, "the surgery went well. You're going to recover, Yin." His voice was calm and sincere. Yin looked at him but didn't return the smile. She simply nodded slowly. Her eyes welled up, struggling to hold back tears. Jungkook could sense it, but he could only remain silent, letting out a quiet sigh. "You're not busy?" Yin finally asked in a hoarse voice. Jungkook gave a small smile. "It's 1 o'clock now, my break time, so I took a moment to come here before going back to my practice." Yin gave him a faint smile. Not much more was said. Silence filled the room, yet it felt strangely comforting. Jungkook looked at Yin for a moment, then said, "You should rest. I have to get back now, but I'll drop by again later." Yin nodded. "Take care," she whispered. After Jungkook left, Yin could no longer hold in her feelings. Now truly alone, her tears quietly slid down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away. She didn't want her father to see her crying if he returned. Finally, she stared at the ceiling in silence. In her heart, she asked herself, could she still dream of becoming a mother? And why did her chest feel warm every time she saw Jungkook? Turns out, her feelings for him hadn't completely faded. But she let out a long sigh. This wasn't the time to think about feelings or love. She didn't even feel whole anymore as a woman. Jungkook knew she wouldn't be able to have children, and that alone was enough of a wall for her heart to stop hoping. Let alone Jungkook. She now doubted if any man could ever accept her. The next day, the morning air still felt fresh when the nurses entered Yin's VIP room. They gently helped her clean herself up as best as she could, wiping her body, washing her face, and assisting her in brushing her teeth. Afterward, Yin had a light breakfast provided by the hospital, accompanied by her father, who hadn't left her side since the night before. Just as they finished breakfast, the door to the room slowly opened. Jungkook stepped in, followed by two nurses. One of them was pushing a wheelchair. Yin's father immediately greeted Jungkook with a warm smile. He didn't know exactly who Jungkook was, except that he was one of the hospital's specialist doctors. But from the way Yin looked at Jungkook, and from the closeness he sensed between them, he could tell they had a good relationship, perhaps as friends. That was why he deeply respected the young man's presence. Meanwhile, Yin, who was sitting on her hospital bed, also offered a small smile upon seeing Jungkook. But this smile was different, more genuine, more relieved. There was something comforting in her heart, just from seeing him come again. But it wasn't only Jungkook's presence that made Yin look at him longer. It was also the way he looked. Unlike usual, today Jungkook wasn't wearing a formal hospital outfit, nor a doctor's coat. He appeared in semi-casual clothing, still neat, but far more relaxed than usual. Jungkook walked closer, looking at Yin with a warm smile. "Morning," he greeted softly. "Morning," Yin replied, this time with a more sincere smile. She couldn't deny that she felt happy to see him again, perhaps because his presence always seemed to bring her a little peace amidst all the turmoil in her heart. "I was thinking," Jungkook said after a moment of silence, "it might be better if you didn't stay in your room all the time. The morning air is fresh. How about we go out to the back garden for a while? You can catch some sunlight." Yin looked at him, then slowly nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I think I could really use that." Jungkook's smile widened. He gestured to the nurses. The two of them immediately moved toward the bed, gently helping Yin sit in the wheelchair. Though Yin's movements were still limited and painful, she managed to transfer without much difficulty. Once everything was ready, one of the nurses began pushing Yin's wheelchair out of the room, with Jungkook walking beside her. Yin's father, who had been observing the whole time, smiled in relief. He decided to stay in the room and get some rest, since he hadn't slept at all the night before to look after his daughter. He fully trusted Jungkook and the nurses to take care of her. The walk to the back garden didn't take long. When they arrived, a few other patients could be seen sitting or walking lightly, accompanied by their families or nurses. The atmosphere was calm, with warm morning sunlight lighting up the garden and a gentle breeze blowing peacefully. The nurse pushed Yin's wheelchair to a shaded area near a garden bench. Jungkook sat on the bench, while Yin remained in her wheelchair, facing directly toward the garden. The nurse who had pushed her then politely excused herself, giving them space to talk alone. Now, it was just Yin and Jungkook in a warm silence, accompanied only by birdsong and the soft rustling of the wind. Eventually, Jungkook broke the silence with a gentle voice. "How did you sleep last night?" Yin turned slightly and smiled a little. "Not bad. I was able to sleep, even though my stomach still hurts." Jungkook nodded, as if he had expected that. "That's normal. You just had major surgery. The tissue around the area is still healing. The pain will gradually lessen, as long as you get enough rest and don't overexert yourself." Yin listened attentively. She still wasn't fully recovered, but Jungkook's calm and reassuring voice made her feel more at ease. Then Yin asked, "Aren't you on duty today?" Jungkook shook his head slightly. "Nope. I'm off every Wednesday and Friday. Other doctors take over on those days. We split the schedule." Yin nodded slowly, but her heart was now beating faster. If Jungkook was off today, that meant he wasn't here for work. That meant he came just to see her. She bit her lip, trying to control the sudden nervousness. But somehow, she found the courage to ask, "So, if you're off today, does that mean you came here just to see me?" Jungkook looked at her, then smiled softly. There was a teasing tone in his voice as he replied, "What do you think?" Yin's cheeks flushed immediately. She didn't know how to respond, especially seeing Jungkook's smile growing wider as he noticed her flustered expression. Jungkook chuckled quietly and asked, "If I did come here just to see you, would someone get mad?" Yin frowned in confusion. Mad? Who would get mad? Jungkook nodded as if satisfied with her answer. So no one would be mad, huh? I was just worried. What if suddenly some guy showed up and punched me for stealing his girlfriend? Yin's eyes widened. Then she couldn't help but let out a small laugh. Her laugh was still broken and careful due to the pain in her stomach, but it was the first time she had laughed since the surgery. Something warm crept into her chest. But that laughter slowly faded. She looked at him, then turned her gaze away and said quietly, "But please don't give me hope, Jungkook. Not if you're just going to reject me again like before." Jungkook fell silent. His gaze grew more serious. He looked deeply into her eyes before slowly explaining, "Back in high school, I didn't want to get into a relationship, Yin. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I knew I had to leave." "Leave?" Yin asked, turning toward him. Jungkook nodded. "After high school, I had to leave Seoul. I went to medical school abroad, at Johns Hopkins University in the US, one of the top medical schools in the world. At the time, I just wanted to focus on studying and chasing my dreams. If I accepted your letter back then, I was afraid I'd waver. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to let go of you." Yin was silent, her breath caught for a moment. "So, all this time you've never dated anyone?" Jungkook smiled faintly, then shook his head. "No, I've been busy. Classes, residency, exams, and practice. I never had the time to think about love, let alone relationships. Even now, I'm still busy as a doctor. This heart has never been filled by anyone." Yin was stunned, her chest warmed, her eyes slightly teary, not from sadness, but from relief and something hard to describe. Something she had kept in her heart for so long, now finally finding an answer she never expected. Yin remained silent. If Jungkook had acted like this toward her in the past, she might have jumped for joy, but now, it felt different. Her confidence had truly crumbled. Finally, in a faint voice, Yin said, "You know, I won't be able to get pregnant again after this, right?" Jungkook looked at her deeply, unwavering. "So?" he answered softly but firmly. Yin turned her gaze toward the garden, trying to hold back the storm in her chest. I'm barren, Jungkook. Before she could finish her sentence, Jungkook immediately cut her off. "I know." His voice remained gentle but full of conviction. "I'm a doctor. I know exactly what your condition is, and it's not a problem for me." Yin turned slowly, looking at him as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Maybe you don't mind, but what about your parents?" Jungkook was silent for a moment, then let out a long sigh. "My parents have passed away." Yin's eyes widened, her brows furrowed. "What? When?" "My mom died when I was still in college," Jungkook said softly. "She had leukemia. And my dad, he passed away 2 years ago. A plane crash while he was overseas." Jungkook lowered his gaze for a moment, then looked back at her. "So, there's nothing you need to worry about. No one's going to demand an heir or children or anything." His hand slowly reached out, trying to hold Yin's hand. She didn't resist, just stared at their joined hands before slowly lifting her eyes to meet his. "Yin, will you give me a chance?" Jungkook asked gently, as if afraid of the answer. Yin let out a small laugh, a bitter smile tugging at her lips. "Weren't you always busy?" she teased quietly. Jungkook gave a faint smile, his eyes filled with a sincerity he had never shown before. "A lot happened, Yin. I was busy with school, and then my mom passed away. After that, I buried myself in work, and then my dad passed too. Even now, I'm still busy. Or rather, I purposely keep myself busy." He took a breath, steeling himself to speak honestly. "All this time, I thought if I stayed busy, I wouldn't feel lonely. I thought if I just focused on my career, I wouldn't feel the loss. But I was wrong. I'm tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of living a life that's just about work." He looked deeply into Yin's eyes, as if hoping she'd understand. "And now, after seeing you again, I realized, I want to stop. I want to stop living in a world that's only filled with busyness. I want another reason to come home, another reason to laugh, another reason to feel alive." Yin was silent. His words reached her heart, breaking through the wall she'd tried to build. But her silence made Jungkook a little anxious. He slowly asked, "Yin, do you already have someone?" Yin shook her head slightly. No, I've also been busy with my dad's company. I didn't even have time to think about love. Sometimes I didn't even care about my own health. Her expression darkened. Her eyes wandered off toward the grass. If only I hadn't ignored the pain in my stomach from the start, maybe it wouldn't have gotten this bad. She gave a bitter smile. I was too busy chasing targets, busy with clients, busy with deadlines. I didn't even have time to fall in love. Didn't even have time to care for myself. Her hand trembled slightly in Jungkook's grasp, but she didn't pull away. Instead, it felt like a burden slowly lifting from her shoulders. Jungkook gently squeezed her hand, then said, "Then, will you give me a second chance?" Yin looked at him deeply. "But you'll still be lonely if you marry me, Jungkook. We'll never have children." Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. Jungkook smiled gently. "I don't think that's how it will be." Yin's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "Well, don't think too much about having children. What matters now is that you're healthy," Jungkook finally said, releasing her hand and softly caressing her head. "Okay, let's go inside now. It's time for you to rest," Jungkook said gently, standing up as he prepared to push Yin's wheelchair back to her room. It had already been a week since Yin was discharged from the hospital. Her condition had improved significantly, her body slowly recovering, and the glow on her face returning. But her father still firmly refused to let her return to work anytime soon. "Focus on getting better first," he said. Since then, Jungkook has been showering her with attention. Almost every day, Jungkook would call Yin, sometimes just to check if she had eaten lunch or to remind her to have dinner. Occasionally, he would visit her house after finishing his shift at the hospital. And whenever he had a day off from his hospital schedule, Jungkook never missed the chance to come and spend time with her, even if it was just to sit together in the garden, chatting casually. Today was no different, but something felt special. Jungkook's car cruised calmly along the road, taking them to an unknown destination. Yin kept glancing at Jungkook, full of curiosity. "Where are we going, Jungkook?" she asked for the umpteenth time. Jungkook, seated in the driver's seat, just gave her a small smile, his eyes still on the road. "It's a surprise. You'll find out soon." Yin pouted, resting her head against the window, though her curiosity was growing stronger by the second. A few minutes later, the car entered a large open area. A big wooden sign welcomed them. "Mothers Love Orphanage." Yin furrowed her brows. "We're going to an orphanage?" she asked, turning toward Jungkook with suspicion. "Are you thinking of adopting a child?" Instead of answering, Jungkook just smiled and turned off the engine. "Come on, let's get out first." Still confused, Yin got out of the car, but as soon as her feet touched the ground, a surprise greeted her. "Daddy," came the loud, cheerful voices of little children. Yin's eyes widened in shock as dozens of children of varying ages came running toward them, or more accurately, toward Jungkook. The kids looked incredibly familiar and affectionate with him. Jungkook immediately crouched down to welcome their hugs. They clung tightly to him, some even climbing onto his arms, calling out affectionately, "Daddy, Daddy." Yin stood frozen. "They're calling you Daddy?" Jungkook chuckled while still hugging each child one by one. "Yeah, that's what they call me." Suddenly, a tiny girl around 5 years old tugged on Jungkook's sleeve and pointed at Yin. With her big, innocent eyes and sweet voice, she asked, "Daddy, who's that pretty lady? Is she our mommy?" Yin's face flushed deep red. Her hand instinctively moved to cover her cheeks, but she couldn't hide her shy smile. Jungkook laughed, looked at the little girl, and answered softly, "Yes, that's your mommy." "What?" Yin turned to him sharply, her eyes wide. "Jungkook." But before she could protest, the kids swarmed around her, hugging her from every direction. "Mommy, pretty mommy, what's mommy's name?" Yin laughed nervously but was deeply touched. She stroked their hair gently, returning their hugs sincerely. A warm feeling slowly filled her heart. After the excitement died down and the kids returned to playing, several caretakers from the orphanage came over and greeted Jungkook and Yin. Yin noticed how much they respected Jungkook. After that, Yin and Jungkook sat together on a wooden bench under a shady tree. "So, what's all this about?" Yin asked. Jungkook looked at her softly and explained, "This orphanage used to belong to my parents, and ever since they passed away, I've been the one running it." Yin listened closely, her heart growing warmer. "So," Jungkook continued, "if one day we get married, you won't have to feel pressured about having children, because we already have them. 45 kids. They're all our children." Yin let out a soft laugh, her eyes glistening with tears. 45, huh? Wow, our family is really big." Jungkook laughed too, but his eyes grew serious again as he looked at her. "So, do you still have doubts?" he asked softly. Yin looked back at him, cheeks blushing again. She shook her head slowly. Jungkook held back a smile. "So what does that mean? Shaking your head because you're unsure, or shaking your head because—" "Jungkook," Yin cut him off quickly with a slight pout. "There you go again." She knew he was starting to tease her again. Then, after taking a deep breath, she looked into his eyes with complete certainty. "I'm not unsure anymore. I want to be your wife." And for the first time since the surgery, Yin could smile fully, without fear or hesitation, because she knew that in the days ahead, she would never walk alone. Her father was there, and Jungkook, the man who had accepted her, completely, just as she was. Jungkook smiled warmly, gently holding her hand. "I think I'm really in love with you," he said with a soft chuckle and a sigh. Yin let go of Jungkook's hand and moved to wrap her arms around him. "I love you more," she whispered.